KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting cellist Joshua Roman, performing from his album Immunity, alongside music by J.S. Bach and more. Sunday, June 22nd at UC San Diego's Epstein Family Amphitheater. Reserve your tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.
Welcome back to another edition of the KPBS Cinema Junkie podcast. I'm Beth Accomando. Today I have a special edition of the podcast in which I want to focus your attention on the men and women who perform the stunts that make us gasp in awe. The reason for this focus is that Wednesday, March 16th at noon, stunt performers will be holding bi-coastal rallies in LA and New York to urge the Oscars to recognize stunts as one of its award categories. The category that's being called for is for stunt coordinators. I had a chance to speak with one of the organizers of the rally, Jeff Wolfe. He's president of the Stuntmen's Association of Motion Pictures and a stuntman himself. Then, after my interview with him, I'm going into the archives for my talk with stunt driver Steve Lepper, who expresses his love and appreciation for all the work that went into the Oscar-winning Mad Max Fury Road. But first, here's my interview with Jeff Wolfe. I caught him on his cell phone, so my apologies for the audio quality. I'm speaking with Jeff Wolfe, president of the Stuntmen's Association. And Jeff, you're planning an event to draw some attention to what the stunt people do for movies. Tell me about what that's going to be.
Sure. This is our second event. We're meeting tomorrow in front of the Academy of Arts and Sciences building in Los Angeles again, because the first time we met with 50,000 signatures and about 10 dozen roses to try to show solidarity, to show that we were deserving of an award, of a slot, a category for an Academy Award. We received no response from the Academy, unfortunately, and neither did any news media outlets. They declined to comment. So we're going back tomorrow to stay on them, and we're bringing 75,000 signatures with us this time.
So why do you think there has been no response at all?
Hard to say. The first time that we showed up, it was a few days before the actual awards, so we're trying to get a benefit of the doubt that they were busy with a lot of things for, the awards being 3 days from the last one. But now it's a month after, and things have settled down, and they are meeting tomorrow regarding the diversity situation, which we all respect and understand that they need to talk about. And we appreciate the fact that they've gotten kind of on it with the situation. They're getting it into control. And they're meeting on. They're doing something about it. So we felt it was an appropriate time to reestablish a connection with them and a conversation about maybe looking at this issue as well.
And do you think coming on the heels of the Academy Awards after a film like Mad Max Fury Road gathered up so many nominations and awards and got nominated for Best Picture, do you think this is a really appropriate time to try and make your point?
I mean, absolutely. The fact that Mad Max is in there and it's 80% stunts, even as told by the director of the film. The award we're looking for is a stunt coordinator award. Every department head is awarded an Academy Award, which is, hair, makeup, sound design, visual effects. They don't give it to the person, necessarily applying the appliances for the makeup or the special effects. They give it to the department head. And so we are asking for an award category for the department head of stunts, which is a stunt coordinator. And when you see movies like The Revenant with the bear scene or the fight sequences or a Mad Max Fury Road with all the action that's in there, the coordinator got on board very early, and he went with the director, with producers, and they budgeted, figured out what they could achieve and what they could do, and he went and he picked, all of the stunt performers. He picked riggers. He designed a lot of those shots probably, and half of the time he ends up shooting them as a second unit director because they shoot the action. All of those things are an integral part of movies that we go and see, as well as trailers that sell. Watched the 4.5-hour version of the Academy Awards. We saw a lot of those trailers and a lot of clips from those movies that had action, yet they deny us an award category.
Now, if the Academy does respond and say, all right, we're going to set up this stunt coordinator award, is there a concern that it may end up in those awards that end up being off the main awards show that kind of, they have the scientific awards? Is that going to be a problem? Is that something that's also going to be addressed?
just having recognition and being able to sit at the big kids' table, so to speak, is enough for us. I don't think we expect with a 4.5-hour ceremony to be included in the actual on-camera awards. I mean, it would make sense in a way because they would be showing all of the action footage that they already show. However, we don't expect that to happen. It's just a matter of being accepted into it. It wouldn't matter to us if it was on the scientific awards show or not, the technicals.
And you have an online petition, correct? And anyone can sign that. Can you explain to people how they can get to that?
Yes, care.org has the petition site, and it's also you can look up hashtag #StandUpForStunts is a category on Twitter and on Facebook, and you can connect to any of those through that. And we, of course, really appreciate that if people would look up and sign on to that, because the funny part of it is a lot of people don't even realize that we don't get an award. That we're not. They just kind of goes by, goes over their head, and when you talk to people about it, they go, "Well, why wouldn't you? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever why this is even a conversation in 2016 when you're awarding 2 categories for sound design or sound editing and all of these other things that, as integral a part as those are in the movies, everybody's really, really aware at this point of how stunts and action, cause us to go to the movies and enjoy them."
Well, I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Hong Kong action films and have been since the early 80s, well, actually before the 80s, but I became very conscious of interviewing a lot of filmmakers and performers from then. And I always appreciated the fact that the Hong Kong Awards have a category for, I believe it's action choreography or fight choreography. And I remember thinking back then, like, why don't we have something comparable here? It seems like it would make sense.
Yeah, and I actually trained a lot with Sammo and Jackie Chan and did some moves with Jet Li and the like in Hong Kong for a while. And they're amazing. Their focus on action and the time that they allow for their action is really amazing in Hong Kong. And the thing with that here is I think there's an ideology for the old Academy board that has been around for quite a while, and that board comes from a time when the thought was the man behind the curtain, so to speak. The actor was the actor, and you wouldn't talk about a stunt double, and it was just kind of like swept under the rug. And there's that mentality that I think that is continued for years, and it's just held tight. And that board is fortunately gone for the most part. And this new board that's actually in place seems to be turning around. Hopefully, and working. Like I said, they've made abrupt changes to the diversity issue, and they're meeting on that right away. And hopefully they do something about this too.
And can you tell me a little bit about what the Stuntman's Association does? Is this a union? I mean, do you guys work to try and get more attention for what stunt people do? Do you represent stunt people to,
55 years ago, what happened was back in those days, there were extras that would get bumped up. There were background actors. They would get bumped up to a stunt role or a speaking role, and they would become stuntmen for the day. And what happened was there were people that started to specialize in doing different stunts, and those people got together and created the Stuntmen's Association because they decided that rather than going to be a background actor and then a stuntman and then back to background, they were specialized enough that they were providing a service, doubling actors or playing bad guys or playing these parts. So they became kind of their own fraternal organization that said, if you were a member of us, you're guaranteed, if you're hiring one of our members, you're guaranteed to get a professional stuntman who, is safe and is cutting edge and knows what he says he can do, he can actually pull off. And so it's spawned a few other groups from it. And those groups are all basically fraternal organizations that we work with each other on shows. We try to hire obviously our brothers from the group first, and they're obviously, of course, women's group have sprouted off of those as well. Stunt Women's Association is our sister group. Same thing. So when you're hiring a stunt coordinator or a stunt performer from that group, you're basically guaranteed a professional who's been vetted by the industry, by their experience, and by their resume. And it's an invitation only kind of thing.
And the term stuntman, what does that encompass? Because I think some people may think, okay, it's, somebody driving a car or it's somebody in a fight scene, but what kind of things does that encompass?
Well, there are different specialties. I mean, mine was fighting. I like I said, I fought Jet Li and Van Damme and Jackie Chan, and I was the guy in the elevator in the movie Drive or the Avengers with in the beginning of the Avengers when Black Widow runs up Scarlett Johansson, wraps legs around my neck and flips me and throws me. My background was all martial arts. It was, 30 years of martial arts at this point in all different styles. There are guys that come in from NASCAR who are drivers. There are Cirque du Soleil performers or collegiate level gymnasts that get in the business from that category. There's football players. It's all different skill sets, basically, that you learn. So, and then you branch out from there. So, I'm not the driver that the NASCAR guys would be, but I've driven a lot for film. My base is in the martial arts and the acting world. So I'm, in 200 movies and television shows, when you see a big, tall guy who can do dialogue and then gets his butt kicked, that's usually me.
Well, it's just something that I don't think people often realize, like how broad that term kind of encompasses, because you tend to think of the very obvious things like, a stunt car driver or, someone who's in a fight. But it seems like, it's people who are riding horses or it's people who are, doing other stunts and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, stunts is grown. It's grown. It's obviously horses and there's water, there's scuba stunts, there's underwater things, there's motorcycles, there's rigging that is stunt rigging that used to be about tying a guy off to a tree and letting the horse run away, and the guy gets yanked off the tree, and the guy usually got hurt. And, times have changed now. There's high tech equipment, there's winches, there's cables, there's descenders and decelerators, and again, it all folds back into the stunt coordinator the category, which is somebody who puts all that together and thinks about how to work that out safely and make some fantastic, unrealistic action sequence happen, and everybody stands up and walks away at the end of the day.
You mentioned you were in the scene in Drive. That elevator scene was fabulous in terms of...
Yeah, that was a fun one. They made a head mold of my head, and I remember getting that job auditioning and for the dialogue in the part and thinking it was great. And they said, "Oh, you got to go get your head cast." And I said, "Why do I have to get my head cast?" And they said, "Because we're going to smash it in an elevator." So, yeah, that was a fun.
And you mentioned you worked with some of these Hong Kong action stars, and it does seem that Hong Kong films have an appreciation for what those stunt coordinators, those action directors, those action stars do and allow. I think Jackie Chan was one who had mentioned, like, they would never allow me the time that they do in Hong Kong to perfect an action scene here in the United States. Is that something that's still kind of the case, but is it changing?
It is changing. It depends on the film and what the genre of the film is, but it's getting better. It's hard to do with television, but it's even getting better in television. Like I said, I did Revolution for J.J. Abrams for 2 years, and then I just finished Rush Hour, the new TV show that's coming out March 31st. And on both those shows, instead of trying to cram all of the action in to an 8-day schedule that you would normally shoot an hour-long network TV show on, I will go in and do 2 or 3 of those days as the director, and I'll shoot all the action myself. I'll direct the action. I'll plug it in. I'll create it and make it up, and then shoot it. And that gets edited into the 8 days of first unit footage, and they have a whole show. And that way, they're paying attention to the action. That the action is an integral part of what they're trying to put out, as opposed to, and the same with films. The same with whereas it's not to the level that the Hong Kong films were. Some of those movies that we're talking about, the Jackie Chan movies, that are obviously the draw is the action comedy, the action. When the draw is that for those movies, they'll spend 4 weeks, rehearsing a single action sequence because they want to get it so dialed in and so perfect that they know that's their bread and butter. Basically, they won't do that as often here, but with the new superhero pictures or obviously like the Mad Max or Revenant shows like that. It takes a lot of time to perfect those stunts and the action sequences they're doing, and it obviously it behooves them to do so because those are what are being nominated for Best Picture. And what kind of a turnout are you hoping for or expecting tomorrow? We try to keep it around 100 to 150 people. We're trying to just, the fact is we won't be 1,000 people out there in the streets and flipping over cars and doing crazy stunts. We're in this as businessmen and women who make a living dangerously, but it's calculated risks, and we add to this medium that a lot of other people are getting awards for, and we don't. So it's it's just a respectful demonstration of being there and showing in kind of solidarity that we're not going away, and that a lot of people tend to agree with us that they enjoy what we do and they want us to be awarded for that as well.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for your time, and maybe I can check in with you later in the week and see if you got any kind of response from the Academy.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
All right, well, best of luck, and I'll try talking to you later in the week and see if you've gotten any movement from the Academy.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
That was Jeff Wolfe, president of the Stuntman's Association of Motion Pictures. He's organizing a petition and a rally to get the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to recognize stunt work as one of its awards categories. Now for my interview with stunt driver Steve Lepper. I spoke with him last year after a press screening of Mad Max Fury Road. Now, this was well before Mad Max had any thoughts or hopes of getting Oscar nominations or awards. Appropriately, we did the interview in my car, which, after driving it for a few feet, he told me my engine mounts were broken. He turned out to be right. He's kind of a car whisperer, but I wanted to talk to him because he's a stunt driver, and I thought that he could give some insights into what went into making Mad Max Fury Road such an adrenaline rush. So here's my interview with Steve Lepper right after seeing Mad Max Fury Road. So forgive us if we were still a little buzzed from the screening. How should I identify you? As a stunt driver, precision driver?
Precision driver. I have for many years referred to myself as professional road warrior. So it kind of fit with this movie. That kind of fits.
All right. So we just saw Fury Road. What was your reaction to that from a stunt point of view? I mean, how did you feel about the stunts in that film?
The movie, I thought it was very well done. The movie was it was constant adrenaline. It was stunts start to finish. They open with a car crash, and and there's cars crashing and things blowing up throughout the movie. So it's nonstop action. It was great fun to watch. And I see where they talk about a lot of live action work and things like that. And I think it shows in this. There's some of the car crashes and things, where they're actually crashing cars together and doing things that, normally you just sit and do on a computer screen.
And do you think that makes a difference when you're watching a film? Does it feel more immediate, or do you feel more engaged in the action when it is like a practical stunt?
I do, and I think the audiences are smart, and I don't always think that Hollywood gives the audiences enough credit. That they can tell when things are computer generated, even very well done things. It's not real. In this film today, it's very difficult to tell where the CGI, in many cases, where the CGI began and the live action ended. And there was a lot of the fight scenes, the jumping between vehicles, things like that, where obviously there's safety gear involved that they have to CGI out the rigging wires and things like that. But they're actually people jumping between the vehicles, and that adds an element of realism.
He looked right at me! He looked at your blood bag! He turned his head, he looked me straight in the eye! He was scanning the horizon! No! I am awaited! I am awaited in Valhalla!
Yeah, I felt myself a few times. And I mean, I've seen a lot of films, so I feel like I'm a little bit savvy about how stuff is done. But there were a couple of times when I felt myself gasping, going like, like when you watch a Jackie Chan stunt too.
Yes. Oh yeah, because Jackie, good grief, everything's live with him. The guy is amazing. If Jackie Chan, you watch the outtakes, because it's amazing to see the stuff the guy does, and it's live and it's real.
Now you've seen the other Mad Max films.
Yes, all of them.
George Miller seems to have a particular knack for car stunts and how to shoot them. Do you have any kind of sense or insight into why his stuff does seem to work so much better than a lot of others?
I think it is a case where you have to have people that appreciate cars and understand and are car people that have that appreciation, and they know what. In this film, there was a lot of action where it was the crashes and the things like that. There is a lot of setup that goes into these things, and the cars are cut in specific ways to break apart easily and all of that. But still, you watch them, and the realism and the things that you get drawn in, and you have to understand. I think you have to have an understanding of dynamics and physics and those sorts of things to really be able to portray these outrageous things so accurately.
Well, it also seems like he just has a good sense about where to put the camera, well, like where to put you as the viewer. Yes. For kind of a maximum impact. Yes,
and yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. There's a couple of scenes in particular where the cars are essentially exploding coming towards you. Being able to get a sense of the energy involved in these crashes is, there is a ridiculous amount of force going on there. So it is, but yeah, to see it from a particular angle, it's coming, even though this is not a 3D film or anything, there's places where it's coming out of the screen at you.
Well, and also some of the times when they're crawling underneath cars and along the edges of cars.
Oh, and that has been throughout all of the Mad Max films. That has been a recurring, they don't stop for anything. And so they're repairing the cars. They even took that a step further here, where the guy's under the hood repairing one of the engines while the second engine is running the vehicle, and constant things like that. And it adds to the drama, because that's all of these components and parts and things that are moving and flailing around, and adds so much to the danger. Because, as somebody who's, worked on and around race cars all my life, you don't touch stuff like that.
Well, it's still moving.
You don't touch things when they're moving. No, that's a bad thing. You don't do that.
And how would you compare the film in terms of kind of the level of stunts, in terms of the number of cars and kind of how dangerous they are, to other films you've seen?
This film may rival the Blues Brothers for the total number of cars destroyed. I think the Blues Brothers was 102, or I forget what the exact number was. But in the fact that even if you go back, the crew, watch the credits at the end, the crew that built the cars, there's probably 50 people building these things. The creativity and the vision that went into creating these things. As an engineer, that a lot of these things aren't real and don't work that way, but you get drawn in and you believe, that here's this, twin engine supercharged truck with all, all of these crazy things going on around it, and you believe that it all works, and you get drawn in by it. And they do such a good job through the creation and the building and the craftsmanship of these cars that you get drawn into it, and you believe it's all real.
Well, it also seems to have this level of, I don't know if I'd call it artistry, but it's like when you go see lowrider cars.
Yes.
There's all this work put into how they look.
Yes.
And how gorgeous they are. And even though these are kind of, this is in an apocalyptic future where things don't all work quite so well and parts are old, but there seems to be kind of an artistry to the way they're...
Very, very much. There is definitely that. And if you look at steampunk culture today, that's very much what this is. This is an outgrowth of that. Or I think in many ways, steampunk owes some of its origins to Mad Max and to some of those kind of movies, because that's where the feeling comes from. And I think they do a great job in this film continuing that, and continuing the post-apocalyptic world from a standpoint of, each movie moves a little farther out into the future and all of that. It is all very conceivable. They're using things of today, or in this case, a lot of the cars were 30s through late 50s cars. So it was an interesting commentary there. You could have used what were brand new cars today, 2015 models, and they would be old cars because this is happening, maybe 100 years in the future, 50 years in the future. So they would all be old cars. So it's interesting that they specifically took old cars to create these.
Is that something, though, that car fans would probably appreciate? I mean, because those are kind of like old muscle car kind of cars.
Oh, absolutely. There are anybody who is a gearhead and really is into old cars is going to see things in this movie and appreciate things. From the there's like a 67 Barracuda that is one of the cars which is also unusual because that's not a car that you would have seen in Australia. And that's where a lot of these cars originate. Max's Falcon is an Australian icon, but you see some of these others. The Cadillac, the leader of the bad guys is a 5960 Cadillac. And if you're into cars and know old cars, you'll recognize pieces of these. And so you kind of identify with them that way. I was fascinated. I think they did a fantastic job with the creation and the vision that they had with the automobiles, because the automobiles and all the vehicles are a central part of the story. They're characters in the story.
And can you give a sense to somebody who may not know anything about like performing a car stunt? I mean, what kind of level of complexity are we talking about on this average kind of thing? I mean,
there are so many. Just look at the number of stunt people and the technical people and all of that you see in the credits. It takes hundreds and hundreds of people to pull off one individual scene like that, because there are multiple things happening at once, and you've got everybody has to be on the ball and coordinated and knowing what's going on, and there's so many contingency plans and all of this. It's hard to give a sense of, to somebody that doesn't know anything about it. It's hard to convey how big a production this is. Maybe think about a conductor. Think about a conductor conducting a symphony. That's the stunt coordinator, the director, those people here. There are hundreds of people out there that all have to perform their exact stunt and their exact move at a very specific time for it to all come together. You imagine if you had a symphony and everybody was just playing their own piece of music as a free-for-all. It would make no sense at all. All those 100 people on the stage have to work together. And that's exactly what's going on here. Probably several hundred people in some of those bigger scenes, because there were scenes where there's 50 cars in them. So you figure there's a driver in each car. There's all the characters and the actors, the stunt performers around the cars and hanging off of them and all of that, and all the safety people and all the everything else involved. There's easily 100 people involved in one scene.
Well, I thought it was interesting, too, that when you look at the credits, the second unit director, I think, was also like the head stuntman or
yes.
head stunt coordinator, which I think conveys something.
That is, I think, with Furious 7 was also another one like that. There's so much live action going on, and the second unit it's all stunt people. And you need to have extremely trained, extremely qualified people that have seen everything and have seen every contingency when it comes to a movie this complex. Because you've got cars crashing and flying apart and on fire and people jumping off the cars and things like that. And some of those, you did see some. Obviously, these are either mannequins being tossed, or a lot of that stuff is added in later. But there's actual people. One scene where they jump it's like the monster truck, the old Chevy that's a monster truck. There's people hanging on the outside of that when they do it, and that's just nuts. That's crazy. That's a crazy scene to do.
Well, also what I think is kind of deceptive in a film like this too is that it appears like chaos, but that chaos all has to be coordinated.
It is extremely well orchestrated chaos, or appears to be chaotic. It actually is not. Every single thing that happens is known, and they know in what order it's going to happen and how it is going to be done. When this car crashes, it's going to go this way, and this is going to happen. We expect it's going to roll this many times, and all of those things. And it doesn't always happen that way, so we have to plan for what happens if it doesn't go right. So all of those options have to be considered.
Now, with a film like Fury Road, and also this year we have Furious 7, do you think that the level of talent and artistry that's kind of on display for the stunt people is pushing to get them more recognition?
Absolutely. And I will say, I think it is that the stunt work is, there's a lot of art to it. There is a lot of science. There is a lot of physics and chemistry involved with the fire and all of these different things that go on. It is as much art and science as any other part of filmmaking. And I would personally, I know a lot of people that work on these films. They are amazingly talented, dedicated people, and I would love to see them get some recognition for the work they do.
And especially a film like Furious 7 in this, I mean, it seems like you take that stunt element out and you pretty much don't have a movie.
If you took the stunts and the driving gigs out of this film, there would be no movie. From the very start to the very finish, this movie is a 2-hour car chase. They stop for 5 minutes in the middle, maybe, where they've stopped and they're discussing their plan, and that's it. The rest of the time they are on the move, and there are cars running the whole time. And all the Fast and Furious movies, it's the same thing. The cars are characters in the movie, and without them and without the driving stunts, there's no reason for the movie to happen.
Okay, is there anything else you want to add? Any particular stunt that stood out for you, or?
There were several. Some of the motorcycle jumps, the scene where they jumped the monster truck with the people on it was that one I thought was just awesome. That was fantastic. There were so many things going on in this movie. I would really have to see it again to let it all soak in. You know, the adrenaline is still kind of settling down from seeing this. No, it was fantastic. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Thanks for listening to another edition of the KPBS Cinema Junkie podcast. This edition has been dedicated to stunt performers. There's a petition going on online for people to sign if they support the idea of having an awards category at the Oscars for stunt coordinator. If you go to kpbs.org/junkie podcast, you can find a link for that petition. And I'll have a follow-up podcast on the San Diego Latino Film Festival coming up this week as well. Thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or check out the episodes and the archives at kpbs.org/junkie podcast. Till our next Film Fix, I'm Beth Accomando, your resident cinema junkie.
KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting cellist Joshua Roman, performing from his album Immunity, alongside music by J.S. Bach and more. Sunday, June 22nd at UC San Diego's Epstein Family Amphitheater. Reserve your tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.